Greetings and welcome back to the show. My name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. This is another episode of the All Around Growth podcast. And before we get into anything, the question is, what 3 things will you accomplish this week? All right, today is Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. This is episode number 262 of a show that provides insight and tools to build the life and homestead of your dreams. Like I said, my name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. That question comes from a book titled The Rudder of the Day. For those of you who listen to the show regularly, you know that this is a book I refer to on a routine basis. For those of you who may be new, this is a book by Dan Miller. And the first 60 minutes of each day will set the stage for what that day will hold. Be very careful with how you start your day. In those first few minutes, you are planting the seeds for your effectiveness, influence, health, and spiritual vitality for that day. If you get up late, grab a cup of coffee and a Twinkie, rush to work fighting the idiots in traffic, and drop down exhausted at your desk 5 minutes late, you have just set the tone for everything that will happen that day. And so the idea with this book is getting a good start on the day, getting our minds right. So let's go ahead and read. Have you decided to be more successful? Are you living aimlessly? Let me repeat that. The title of today's reading is, have you decided to be more successful? Are you living aimlessly or with a clear sense of purpose and direction? Often we have someone call our office about making a change in his or her life. We send information and then hear nothing. 2 years later, that person calls and says, now I'm ready to really create a plan. What I always wonder is, what did they do for those 2 years? And usually, when we meet, it confirms my suspicion that they simply continued doing what they had been doing. We know that we all have a tendency towards continuing the status quo. But once you have made a decision, what would cause you to wait? If you said you wanted to be in better shape physically, when would you like to start? If you wanted to do better financially, when would you like to get started? Many times the years go by and I hear people regret that they did not start something earlier. There is recently published a book titled 5 Frogs on a Log. The essence of the book is this. 5 frogs were sitting on a log. 4 decided to jump off. How many were left? And it goes on to suggest that there were still 5 frogs on the log. The difference between deciding and doing. Quote, how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Close quote. Anne Frank. Now is a great time to be setting your goals for the rest of this year. No matter what happens when you are reading this, now is a great time. There is something magical that happens when you clearly decide and begin to do. Just clarifying where you want to be 5 years from now will start the process toward the fulfillment of that reality. What an exciting way to start tomorrow, this month, and this year. There is considerable evidence to indicate that expectations of your future do, in fact, tend to create your future. People usually end up pretty much where they expect. It seems reasonable then to spend some time determining specific, worthwhile expectations that will make your life more meaningful. Quote, it takes as much time and energy to wish as it does to plan. Close quote. Eleanor Roosevelt. And before we ask ourselves the question to provide some direction for today, which is how we began the show of the 3 things that we will accomplish this week, let's take a quote from the Bible. And this comes from Joshua chapter 1, verse 8. Be strong and very courageous. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. All right. What? Easy for me to say. So what 3 things are we going to do this week? Well, guys, it's Wednesday, which means for most of us, for many of us, it's a day that we consider the hump day. And we're halfway through the week. I mean, I guess technically we can call it lunchtime or midday when we're halfway through the week. But this is where we are. I will say that this week I did not do a weekly review. I did not revisit my 3 outcome goals that I have for the first quarter in 2021. And quite frankly, that is a poor start to this week. Now, that doesn't mean I can't correct and get caught up or rectify myself. And whether I even do that or not, I'm not sure, because we're already at Wednesday. So I may simply throw in the towel on the planning for this week, because quite frankly, some things have come up unexpectedly that I didn't account for. And I will be taking Friday off because the old truck here is going into the shop Thursday night. And rather than deal with the headache and the logistics of getting a ride to work and getting a ride home from work, especially in the winter time when it's slow, it seems like a good opportunity to take the day off and get caught up on some things around the house, including but not limited to planning, scheduling, so on and so forth. Something really, really stood out to me in this reading this morning, and as we approach the tracks, I am going to reread it. And I hope that when I read it, it clicked with you too. So here we go. The words that resonated so deeply this morning, written by Dan Miller, read as follows. Now is a great time to be setting your goals for the rest of this year. No matter when you are reading this, now is a great time. There is something magical that happens when you clearly decide and begin to do. Just clarifying where you want to be 5 years from now will start the process toward the fulfillment of that reality. What an exciting way to start tomorrow, this month, and this year. So, now is the time. Today is that day. we always want to be ahead of the curve in life. But reality, or the reality is that oftentimes we aren't. Certain things happen in life, certain things come up, and we need to adapt. We need to pivot. We need to be able to change and be fluid if we want to be able to address the challenges that life inherently has in a calm, cool, and collected manner, and do so without stress. Just because we're into the second week of the new year, technically the third, whatever, but that doesn't mean that it's too late to set goals. And forget about New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are expectations of failure. We all have done them. We have all made them in the past. Don't do it anymore. I mean, do whatever you want. You do you. But I don't do resolutions anymore. The way I approach life is a continual process of change. I used to set New Year's resolutions. I used to do a past year review, something that I learned about in 2018 from Tim Ferriss. I did that for a few years. This year I worked my way through the 2022 goal setting workbook by Dan Miller, who's inspired a lot of the thought that goes into this podcast. Shout out to Dan and the 48 Days Eagles community. If you're interested in this stuff and you like what you hear and you want to learn more about the man that drives this content and the subsequent community that's formed around him, then by all means, do so. I'll link to it in the show notes, and admittedly, they're affiliate links. Make no bones about it. It's something that helps me, and if you believe that this show helps you and you want to learn more, then by all means, check those links out, support me, support the show, and let's improve life together. So let me know what you think. And if you don't want to do that, the 2022 goal setting workbook that I talk about, it is available for free. All right? Like, no obligation, no whatever. So you choose to do with it what you will. And then ultimately act on it how you will. Because that's the whole idea behind the frogs on a log. And this is an old fable, analogy, story that I remember first hearing it in my late teens. 3 frogs on a log. 2 decide to jump. How many remain? Okay, it's not until we act that something happens. And that has been, that is effectively one of the key points that I made in a blog post that I recently wrote and is in the process of being edited and soon to be posted, hopefully, I guess. We'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated on that. But in that post, in that article, I quoted Earl Nightingale, who says, "Ideas are worthless unless we act on them." And that comes from the strangest secret. Something that's changed my life. And I will link to that too in the show notes because it can change yours. I've done complete episodes about this in the past. So remember, now is a great time to be setting your goals for the rest of the year. No matter when you are reading this, or no matter when you are hearing this, now is a great time. There is something magical that happens when you clearly decide and begin to do. Just clarifying where you want to be 5 years from now will start the process toward the fulfillment of that reality. You see, it begins now, and we begin with the end in mind. 5 years out, 10 years out, 3 years out, 1 year out, 1 month out, this week, today, right now. If you're not sure where to begin, send yourself an email or a text or make a note in Noseby or whatever project manager you use of this show. Come back, reference it, reference the show notes, download this workbook. Just do one thing today. And then fill it out. And then keep listening to this show for a link in the show notes in the future to this article that I wrote, because that is an exciting project and I look forward to sharing more with you about that as time goes on. But as you can hear, I have arrived at the day job and it is time to conclude today's episode. So guys, many thanks for tuning in today. I certainly appreciate it. I appreciate your participation in the Telegram group, which is slowly growing. If you want to be a part of that and grow along with us, you can check it out on your internet browser at t.me/allaroundgrowth. Or if you've got Telegram installed on your phone, PC, or tablet, just simply search groups for All Around Growth. And we'll see you there. Check out the show notes for links to everything in the show that was talked about today, or at least everything that was noteworthy. And guys, we'll see you on the next show tomorrow. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.